Welcome to 303 Garage Talks. We are here today with Deirdre Moynihan, the tour director of Ride the Rockies and Pedal the Plains. This episode is brought to you by Flex Central, their sponsor for the Ride the Rockies, and maybe we can just give them a quick plug and tell us how they support you and make this thing happen.
Well, Flex Central's been a tremendous supporter of Ride the Rockies, and they're like an example, much like many of our other partners, of a really strong partner that works with you, not only being a cash sponsor, but really inviting people into the ride, working with me hand in hand on what are the best things we need to do to grow the ride, what works, what doesn't. Just every strategic move we make, we're in contact with him, and that's kind of like the really good partner. And that is one of the hard things about this year, not only not seeing the riders in June, but not working with those sponsors for all the time. I actually recently did what we call drive-by honkings. So we went past his house just to honk.
That's cool.
And just to honk because they're such strong partners of us. And they also work with us. We have a Prologue experience, which is kind of a high-end, fancy fundraiser for the Denver Post Community Foundation the day before the ride the Rockies. So they sponsor that, and they bring their team in, and they're very helpful. So,
well, let's get into some recent news, and then we can talk more about some other things. But let's just get this out of the way, I guess, a little bit. A few weeks ago, you had to basically postpone Ride the Rockies till next year for the same route,
yes.
Same dates, basically, right? So, and then you just announced that you are postponing the Pedal the Plains.
Pedal the Plains, yes.
So, darn it, right?
It is it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking to have to do it. We definitely waited to kind of see how it all played out. It's, uncharted territory for all of us. But realistically, it just felt like the right thing to do. Those high touch points of like aid stations, can we guarantee the safety? And can we guarantee we're not bringing the virus in to communities that do not have a lot of the virus at this point?
Right.
And you think about the plains, many of those communities have nobody with COVID-19 at this point, but at the same time, they also don't have the same medical resources. So to bring in the virus, because we have people from 50 states, 11 countries that come in, could be just devastating in so many ways. So it just seemed like the right thing to do, but it was hard. The other thing, though, is that our Ride the Rockies route was so good.
It was good. That was pretty sweet.
And it was so good that, I didn't want to just share it with 1,300 riders that weren't afraid to come. I wanted to share it with the 2,000 riders that we normally have. So it seemed like the right thing, and the communities were very supportive. The communities really wanted us to come because we bring such an economic boom.
Right.
And they really need that. But it was the right thing to do, and that's what you got to do. So it's been a hard couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but the riders have been very, very supportive of the choice, and the partners. Our partners stand with us, and the communities. So we're happy about that.
Well, and you work closely with the governor's office and other political entities to make those rides happen. So I'm sure there's a lot of, bit of pressure on that, where they want to make sure that because they're so involved
especially Pedal the Plains, where we do it in collaboration with the governor's office and with many of the state departments, Department of Agriculture, CDOT, Public Health is out there with us. So you have all these departments out there. They need to focus now on COVID-19 and what the needs are in those communities, and not necessarily a bike tour this year. They needed to pull back, and appropriately so. So that was another consideration, is that it just wasn't the right time for them to kind of focus on a bike tour. There's big needs out there.
Well, last year when I did Pedal the Plains, which I really enjoyed, it was a tough ride. Especially that second day, it was really hard. I'm like, Deirdre!
I know, I'm sorry.
What are you doing to us? Anyway, that one night at Holly, when I went to the football game, and I'll bring this around to a question in a second. And we were all watching the football game, and this ambulance went by. And the woman from the town I was just talking with, she goes, oh, that's not our ambulance. It's all good. I'm like, that's not your ambulance? I mean, because there's one ambulance in town.
Ambulance. You're right.
And so obviously the medical resources are limited, but maybe compare and contrast the communities that you work with Ride the Rockies, which is probably a different kind of community than the Pedal the Plains. And maybe talk about the comparison and contrast and how you deal with those communities differently or the same.
Well, it's kind of interesting. So, Ride the Rockies hits a lot of kind of key tourist spots. Durango, Ouray Ridgeway, and, so they're a little more experienced in dealing with big events coming through. Like they have those tourism groups and they have those visitors bureaus kind of ready to go. And they probably have more outreach. Although this year we went to Norwood, which was in contrast to going to Telluride. It was kind of the, Telluride has the Bluegrass Festival, but we had been to Telluride. And, we like to find and showcase new gems. And Norwood, Colorado is by far, it's a wonderful gem. And it's a little bit more of a community like Pedal the Plains. Out in the plains, these are small towns. We bring in more riders than there's people that live in the town. So that, and the person that is the mayor is also the person that runs the local pizza place, but he also has the hotel. He runs, then you're like looking for a shuttle and they're like, oh, well, that's Joe. Just call Joe. Joe, So they're truly rural communities and farm communities. It's the heart of our agriculture. And so it's a little different, but they rally so much. And this is true of Ride the Rockies and Pedal the Plains, where they just totally rally for these events, and they love having us there. I think like in Hawley, you saw the town.
Yeah.
You met everybody that night. Everybody was there. And I know the big question was, the Saturday was a hard ride, and they're like, Deirdre, we could have gone the other way, and the wind would have been different.
Right.
Well, Hawley wasn't available on Saturday night, so all of those people were going to a sporting. Their teams were traveling, so sometimes you have to factor that in on the route, that we could have gone to Hawley, but there would have been nobody there. Whereas Springfield. So all of the communities are great, and you get to know them all really well across. Ride the Rockies and Pedal the Plains, and they become great resources and friends. They're just really tremendous people. And I think that out in the plains, what you do see, and what I notice the most is you look at the history of the plains, and there's like this tremendous resilience of, let's do it this way. And you see that with the windmills, where you see the old windmills out in the, and then all of a sudden you see it next to these massive windmills, and how they're constantly adapting to their environment and surviving. And I love that about the plains.
I picked up on that hugely doing that ride, and you just pass through little clusters of homes or homes that aren't even lived in anymore.
Right.
And that one house by that one aid station that still had the old TV inside.
Yes.
And these couches and broken windows, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened here? And it's just so interesting. And I really enjoyed the Future Farmers. Talk about a couple of the volunteer groups that you work with on either event.
Future Farmers of America, we work with the Colorado FFA Foundation, and they basically they support youth to kind of jump into careers in agriculture. And they have a wonderful program, and we've been supporting them. They're one of our key charity partners for Pedal the Plains. And what it does is every member of the Colorado FFA gets a blue jacket, called the blue corduroy jacket. And we raise money so that everybody can afford one. Because it's a really badge of honor in their world to have one of those jackets. And you'll see, I'm sure you saw them out there.
Yeah.
Well, we're all very, they just looked so nice all the time. And so they're out there supporting, but they also do the lunches.
Yep.
And they cook lunches and they get locally sourced food. So on Pedal the Plains, you get fabulous meals. I mean, on that Saturday when it was so hot, we had the best steak lunch.
I walked into
it was unbelievable.
Steak sandwich. I'm like,
I know, potatoes and the melon. So, and they work really hard. And what they do is they bring in the local FFA chapters in those areas. Last year, for the first time, we also used them to do our water trucks and trailers. And nobody wants that volunteer job. I mean, that's a hard job.
Yeah.
You're like, and you have to make sure that water is everywhere because you can't get water. So those boys and girls, oh my God, they worked so hard on that Saturday, and they were tremendous. They were tremendous. So they're actually, for the first time in 2021 now, they're going to be also helping us with Ride the Rockies.
Oh.
They'll be doing some of the dinners in Ridgeway and the water trucks. They're forever locked in to do the water trucks. We have 2 big water trucks with trailers. The Colorado 4-H, they man all the aid stations for us, and they get a large grant from the Denver Post Community Foundation. And that's really fun because you have 4-H's kids of all ages. And so you just see all these people out there, and they have their pigs, and they're great fun to have out there, and they're supportive. And then for Ride the Rockies, we travel with about 75 traveling crew. These are people that give up a week of their lives to travel and work long, hard days doing SAG, course marshaling, formerly water truck. They're at headquarters. I mean, they're there traveling with us doing so much. So that's a very key group. And then you'll see a lot of community volunteers, and each community is responsible for recruiting volunteers. So that's also fun, and they always wear like a special color shirt. So you can kind of look out at Ride the Rockies at a headquarters, and like last year it was green. You could just see the sea of green, and how much of the community comes out for that.
Well, a lot of money goes to the communities, correct? And the different organizations within the community, and that's really the mission of this entire ride, right?
Is to support the communities, and we support them in multiple ways. There's grants to nonprofits. We also, volunteer groups come in and they receive grants as well. And the other thing is that Ride the Rockies brings in easily $250,000 each night into a community.
$250,000?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, it's really an economic, most endurance events really do bring in a tremendous economic impact. And it's because of the tourism, but then they're also, about 60% of our riders will say they're coming back to this spot or that spot. I mean, like last year we went to Camp Amachi and Pedal the Plains.
Yeah, right.
And everyone's now going to bring their family. I mean, that was a Japanese-American internment camp in Colorado that people don't even know is there. I mean, it's huge. 10,000 Japanese Americans were there. And it has that wonderful museum with that man who knows so much.
Right.
So everyone, they spent and they stopped, but now they want to go back. And Hotchkiss last year and Ride the Rockies had all these wonderful things going on, and you want to go back, or Carbondale. And so part of what we do is showcase that. Yeah. And I think it's really important. And we always try to find someplace we haven't gone before. And so this year, 2020 to 2021, Ride the Rockies is Norwood. And I do know I have a good idea where we might go next year for Pedal the Plains, but I'm not telling.
Okay. Darn it. I thought we were going to get the scoop today. Damn it. So let's back up a little bit. You've been with the Ride the Rockies and Pedal the Plains is this your 3rd year?
I'll be going to my 3rd season.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 3rd season.
Let's back up 10 years, 15 years. How did you get into this event directing and being part of events? And
what
do you love about it?
It's kind of funny. It shouldn't be a surprise to some who know me, but my background is in theater.
Really?
Yes.
That surprises me. I didn't know that. I'm out of the loop.
So I was on the East Coast. I was in New York, and I was in kind of some regional theater. I worked in New York theater, Williamstown Theater Festival, Portland Stage Company. So much more in the background, fundraising, producing, that kind of stuff. And I don't know, just at some point there was a recession and you're kind of like, I didn't like watching plays anymore. I just lost their magic. And so that was really, really kind of disheartening to me. So I just started working as a fundraiser for the National MS Society. So, you go from doing plays to organizing events. It's very similar, different costumes, actors, athletes, a lot of similarities there. And we won't go into that. But, and it's just putting the pieces together. And I think I like putting those pieces together. I've always been kind of an organizer. I come from a large family, and my four brothers would like to say that they organize, but they really don't. It was, so it's just kind of who I was. And I was at the National MS Society. I was the vice president there in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. And I did, I don't know, like 17 walks and a 3-day walk, and I did 6 bike tours.
Okay.
So it's, it was a Boston to Provincetown was one of my favorites, or the Martha's Vineyard ride. And I don't know, out of all the events I did, I just really liked the bike tour. I just really liked the participants. I really liked organizing the ride. I really liked that there's a lot of camaraderie in cycling. It's as much about what happens when you finish a ride or at the start of the ride as during the ride. I loved watching a peloton, and so I just became involved in that.
Because you've been involved with pro racing as well.
Yes, I've worked Tour California, I've worked Pro Challenge, I've worked Colorado Classic. I've definitely organized a lot of my own races. I've worked with all of Chris DBC events. So I've done a lot. I'm for 29 years old, I've got a stacked career.
That's awesome. I wish I could accomplish so much in so
all that, and I'm such a little, so young.
How do you, when you think about a tour, like a Ride the Rockies versus a race, what do you get out of both differently? Like, what are some of the things the passion of it that you really bring, that really comes from those things?
It's really interesting. So when you do a tour and you see people out there and you spend all this time kind of organizing the right aid stations and the route, and you put it all together, and then you just see people out there just really enjoying it, you really feel awesome. Like, you go by in your truck and everyone's like, they got a thumbs up, or it's raining and they're still happy, or they finish a tremendous windy day on Pedal the Plains.
Yeah.
And they feel such a sense of accomplishment, and you just feel like, well, I helped do that for them. Like, I helped them enjoy it. It's like just planning a big party, a big traveling circus, and I just enjoy seeing that. And I enjoy putting the pieces together. Like, I love seeing that what a cyclist might like. And the big question is, I would never do Ride the Rockies. I do like to ride my bike a lot, but I would never, as an individual, do Ride the Rockies. To me, that would be the worst thing ever. I don't understand all those mountains. I would love to do Pedal the Plains, Not because it's easier, because as you know.
No, that was like the hardest ride I've ever done. I've done a lot of hard rides. I didn't even finish that day. I got to 2 buttes, 80 whatever miles in.
Yeah.
I was done. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I've done Ironmans. I don't need to prove this to anybody.
But, well, see, and that was the wind. It was Baca County, Baca County is known for the Dust Bowl.
Yeah, no, I know.
It was a little hard to market that one last year because,
But you know what? It was cool. It was actually cool. Like, in 2 buttes, that old gymnasium.
Oh, was that?
Out of Hoosiers. It was a scene from Hoosiers. It was so cool. But that day, my gosh, that ride from wherever, the most north point to that south point before we turned west, probably 35 miles. And I was riding with this guy he's a time trial champion here. He's a little older than me, but we're in our small front ring, almost our easiest gear, going like 12 miles an hour. My heart rate's like 150.
I can say with certainty that we will probably not be in the southeastern plains
Yeah, I actually liked it. Was like being a pioneer, though. You kind
It
of
was, but there's only one tree to share
yeah.
with everybody. That's a little hard, and it's windy, and I think we've had 2 years of that. We will head back up north.
But perseverance was fun, and tell us a story that throughout your year, something that if I said to you, what was the most inspiring thing you've ever been part of as a race or event or director, what would you say it is?
There's really so many, but I think like when you're working with the juniors, I've run a lot of junior programs, and the juniors now that they're on pro teams, or they're on national teams, or they're national champions, like that. I just, I fill with pride. But I think, I did these tours called MS Global with the MS Society, and I can remember a couple riders with MS that did the Alduez.
Oh.
And they get to the top on their own, and they have riders near them and stuff, but they do it. I mean, that really makes you feel very verklempt, like you definitely are crying.
Yeah.
There's those moments that just make you really proud and really proud that you helped someone achieve that goal. So I think it's those moments where you've done something and you've helped someone achieve what would have seemed like an impossible goal. And I love doing that. That I really like doing.
I mean, you've worked with a lot of juniors, and you seem to love doing that. And you brought.
I got one there.
Yeah, hello, background, but you that seems to be a real passion of yours.
It is because you want to give opportunities, and I think also, for anything, whether it's theater or anything, you want to encourage. So in cycling, you want to encourage that growth, and you need to expose them. You definitely have people that become great cyclists later in life, but it's not as easy as when you're younger. You have less fear, and you can just go forward. So you want to provide those opportunities for everybody. And I would love to see cycling be accessible to all. And I kind of struggle sometimes that it's an expensive sport, and it's got a lot of people that do fairly well. And I like being part of a system that brings in people that don't have access and shows them, because it's not only about the races or the rides, but it's a means of transportation. It's a freedom, and we're seeing that now where more people are out kind of on their bikes during the shelter in place. So, using it as a tool as well. I mean, I think that it's a great thing for health and well-being.
Do you see that same passion as you move forward with these tours in the future? Do you see things maybe developing that are a little bit different, that maybe do offer more inclusion for people that maybe only have a little bit of time but they don't have a good bike, or they're young and they just want to be part of it for a day or two?
Yes, because I've expanded it to offer one-day tours. I work with groups so that we have more juniors, or here you have a situation where it's, I guess what you would say, like with Ride the Rockies, I want to make sure that it's accessible to everybody that has this fiscal ability to this fiscal ability. And so you have those people, you pay $5.75 and you get your housings for free, full support, there's food on the route. So you still have to pay for your own food and stuff, but for the most part, you can almost do a 6-day tour for less than $1,000. That's really like a great trip. I mean, it's a wonderful trip that is more accessible. I definitely have people that spend $6,000 on hotels.
Right.
I mean, I definitely have that, and then I have everything in the middle, but it's making sure that those people are there. And also when people reach out and say, I can't pay $5.75, but I really want to do it. Well, we have a 2-day tour, we have a 1-day tour, or let's talk about volunteering. What can you do? And we have a group of people that volunteer with us throughout the year to they're called our office volunteers, so that they can get entries. And then I always work with juniors to help them ride.
Yeah, I've seen that in the last couple of years, more juniors,
Yeah.
and it's really cool.
And it is really, and it's inspiring for people. People
Yeah.
see them, and they, it's really great. Although everybody knows, as Peter and the boys can tell you, is that there's no hiding from me. Like, everybody knows where the juniors are, because every SAG and course marshal will be like, yes, we've seen them cited. Peter's been cited. Mark's been cited. So that I always know where they are, because there's that part, keeping them safe.
What's one of your greatest challenges that you face year in and year out doing is it the route? Is it picking the route? Is it dealing with the cities? Is it
all of it?
All of it. Is there one thing that really you're like, that you keep putting aside because you just?
Well, I think putting a route together is very hard, because it's like putting this puzzle together. And this year is a perfect example. You knew where you wanted to go, and then one town says no.
Right.
So you're like, okay, well, here's an alternative, and it's kind of putting the pieces together. But you have to say, okay, I really have to make them all really want to do it. And this year I had a town that said yes, said no, said yes. We're going, said no, January 8th. I announced on January 11th.
Oh.
So, I was there in their town council meeting on January 8th, and we had opened early registration. And so it was one of those things where that's really tough, because you can see with a town, we're a big group that comes in, and we really can tax their infrastructure. So, and it's a lot. We ask a lot of them. So you have to say, can they really do it? So I think that that's one of the biggest challenges. And then after that, it's just, I think, always keeping people safe. I mean, to me, that's because I can set up every single protocol on everything, but it also relies on individuals riding safely. And, sometimes they don't. I mean, call me crazy, but. But over the last couple of years, we've it's been great. We've not had many visits.
Is permitting pretty difficult because you have multi-agencies, you have multiple
It's not necessarily difficult. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. We're very lucky. We have a wonderful relationship with CDOT and Colorado State Patrol. So we start with them, and then but you're working with the communities. By the time they've kind of decided, yes, you can come, everyone's about in. But then there's kind of a stack of paperwork and stuff that goes with it. So it's more tedious, but once they've said, yes, we want you here, they'll work with you.
So we had Lance Panagudi on, as you know, and he talked about the camaraderie among the event directors around the state.
Yes.
Speak to that.
Well, I mean, we all are experiencing the same thing, and we like to work together. I mean, you would say, I guess some people would think that we're very competitive, but we're not. And you can even see, like, in the calendar, everyone kind of has their time, but if you have to move, there's like, well, no, that's Elephant Rocks week, it's kind of working together. When there's the big cross race, okay, that's so that we kind of work together. And lately, we've been convening some Zoom calls just to talk about best practices, just to talk about other people that are going through the same thing. And it's really helpful. Lance had to deal with more permitting and kind of, because of his races, some of the things he dealt with in terms of the question, what are we going to do to mitigate the virus? And so we were able to talk about that on a call recently. And some of us have already postponed. Some people are not yet there. So we've been able to talk about how we did that and how do people respond, and what is the refund policy going to be, and who's doing what is happening. And it's really helpful, because then you kind of know the temperature of what's happening, and you just have a great support system.
Would you say, is there anything that you feel like you've really learned through all this that maybe you didn't even think about before? The COVID, just, oh my gosh, I never thought about that, but what a great learning opportunity. Or have you had some aha moments throughout all this?
I guess I have, because I think it's always great to go back and revisit, how we do, like, what happens at an aid station, and what is each protocol. And it's interesting, because the aid stations always come up. And so really working through, how do you run a no-touch event, which is what we would have to do in the near future, really eliminate. And so you kind of, it's I don't know if it's been an aha moment, but it's a really good thing to do to kind of revisit that. And so that's been, I think, really almost fun to do, to kind of revisit and make sure that you're on track. And it's interesting, again, I said aid stations is the hot spot. And then we have indoor camping, which
Right.
indoor camping doesn't qualify anymore for.
That's out.
I'm really sorry, anyone that's watching that does indoor camping, but you are not socially distanced in those. Right. So that, that I have to really look at that. But the one is the SAG support. How do you can't really socially distance when you're people are getting in and out.
In vans, you can't.
In and out of vans. Yeah. And what about those SAG drivers? How do I keep them safe? And what are those protocols? And those SAG vehicles pedaled the plains that day. I mean, we SAGed over 300 people. And, there was a lot of vans moving in and out for that last little bit of road that people gave up. And so, how do I do that? So, and I don't yet have an aha moment for SAGs. I'm confident I will come up with one, but it's
big trailer with all these little cars.
I know, like everyone.
Like a train.
But just have a little train of smart cars where everyone gets in, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up a little bit and let's learn a couple things about you maybe that people don't know. Tell me your favorite place in the world.
Peter and I were talking about that in the car, and I'd have to say it's going to be Cape Cod.
Oh.
And, I just think that that's the place I feel the most at home, at places in Massachusetts, because that really is where I've spent most of my adult life. And as a child, we vacationed in Cape Cod, and I just, and I miss, that's the place I miss the most. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, I gotta go to the Cape. And it's one thing Lance and I have in common, the Wellfleet Beachcomber. I think Cape Cod would be if I had to choose.
Nice. All right. I've never been there. I've always wanted to check it out, but I've been to Boston, but that's not really Cape Cod.
No, it's not.
It doesn't count,
no,
right?
It doesn't count.
How about thinking about this year? What would you say has been your best decision of 2020?
Well, that would be Dag the dog.
Dag the dog. Okay.
Dag the dog. We got a dog in January, and so that was good. He's made the shelter in place much better, and he's, of course, loving it like everyone else's dog. So I think that would be my personal, and I think my professional decision was holding out and really fighting for this route on Ride the Rockies.
Oh, okay.
And not giving in.
Which you have for next year, correct?
Which I have for next year.
So now you don't have to do anything over there.
Well...
At least you got one hard decision done.
One hard decision. It usually takes about now I'll start working on 2022.
There you go. And last question for you. If you were to redo your life and had the dream career, what would it be?
We talked about that in the car too. And it's interesting. I think that I probably would want to be a veterinarian.
Really? That's two in a row, Kenny.
I would really want to, be with animals, I think. But just the nature, I don't know. I just don't know why I didn't think about that then.
Yeah.
But, you just don't. And I think that's what would have, I just want to go be with baby elephants and baby sloths and...
Baby sloths, wow.
It's really been on my mind during this shelter in place. Every night I sit down and I look for places I can go and take care of baby sloths. So that's what I'm going to do.
We've got to get a picture of a sloth on this video somewhere.
I'm going to go to Costa Rica in December and take care of baby sloths.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
So if you never see me again, that's where I am.
Chasing sloths, right?
I don't know why sloths.
That's awesome.
Just I don't know.
Well, we are so happy to have you on the show, and thank you so much for coming to the garage and talking about all kinds of fun stuff. And good luck with moving forward on some of
Thank
these
you.
things. I know there's a lot of work to be done and things going on, and thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you.